Welcome to the Everyday Citizens Tactical Podcast, Episode 23, The Modern Minuteman. My name is Jeremy and I will be your host. Today I'm joined by Jon Case, who is actively serving in the U.S. Air Force and is the author of the Modern Minuteman Handbook. So, take your note-taking gear out as we discuss the world of tactical and prepared citizens.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. And Johnny, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me on.
So you have recently come out with a book, but you've also recently caught the Instagram ban, like many of us before you. And,
yep, again.
Now you're back and fighting. The Instagram fight really doesn't stop.
It never does, and I really don't know why. Because when you get banned, right, it doesn't really explicitly be like, oh, this post is the reason why I got banned. So I have no idea, because I haven't posted anything spicy lately.
Yeah,
so
I think it just has to relate to something AI. Like you triggered some sort of word that triggered some sort of algorithm, and then you're just kind of like marked for life from there.
yeah, the weird thing is, I think every time I've gotten banned, my friends also got banned. Like the guys I've worked with, they get banned somehow. So maybe it's because of me they got banned. Hopefully not, but
Do you
trend.
run your Instagram off an iPhone?
Yes, and my computer.
So if you continue to recreate accounts on your iPhone, even if you create it on a browser and then log in on your phone, every probably 3 to 6 months, you're going to go through a cycle of bans because your Apple ID is registered with that Instagram app that you've downloaded, and then you basically tie your account's data to your Apple ID data, and it kind of just eventually the server does like a cycle, and it's like, hey, we've already banned this guy once, he's on the no list, ban him again, and that's why it just comes out of nowhere.
Oh,
I had to move completely away from iPhones and Apple. I've got a bunch of random Google Pixel phones that I bought off eBay that run all of my accounts, and they're all separate. None of them touch each other's devices.
that's smart.
Which
Yeah, because I had to
sucks.
use a VPN to make another account, but
Well, and that's the thing.
like
is,
you said,
I mean, depending on the VPN you're using, are you just using NordVPN?
it's called hide.me.
I'm not familiar with that one. A lot of the mainstream ones, Instagram kind of knows you're using a VPN at this point because those VPNs don't ever cycle their IP addresses. So it's
I'm guessing it's probably mainstream, so I wouldn't see. I kind of see it getting banned again.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Is what it is. But for those that really don't know who you are, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Johnny. Everyone calls me Johnny. Jon Case, or official Jon Case, is my Instagram. Like you said, I've been banned a couple times. It's always around 2,000 followers. I just get banned. I've been in the military for almost 6 years. Controller. So if you know what that is, just the civilian side, same exact thing. I just mostly deal with military aircraft. And it's a hard pipeline. I think the attrition rate's 50%. Once you get your PHI level, which just means you're capable of doing the job by yourself. You don't need someone over your shoulder all the time. Getting into this community, I wrote about it a little bit in my book, why I got into it. It's just mostly being in the Air Force, and specifically my job, we don't learn these things at all because it's not related at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like the military just kind of did me a disservice with that, so I had to go out and find other dudes who wanted to do these kind of things, because no one at work wanted to do this kind of stuff. Towards the tail end, some did, but I just wanted to be ready, prepared for anything, protect my family. That's the most important thing to me. Prepare for the worst. So that's kind of how I got into this.
There's a lot. People will probably be surprised by the amount of military guys that really aren't that motivated or don't want to train extra. There's a lot of guys that want to show up, just do the bare minimum, and then just go back to the barracks and
Yep. I think it's a 9 to 5, but it's not.
And you recently wrote the Modern Minuteman Handbook. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Kind of what inspired you to get into that?
Yeah, so the funny thing is, like, I'm very organized. If like I'm learning something, I have to read like all the different manuals, like in my job, whether we have different regs and stuff we have to go through, not just like the overarching, this is the big regulation I have to read through. I also have to know our local regs. So that being said, reading all these tactical manuals that people have written, as well as like military publications, some of it's overwhelming, and it was overwhelming for myself starting off reading it all. Because you read it and you're like, okay, I read this, I don't really know how to apply it though, because my scope is very limited to seeing what's actually written down. Then you go to YouTube, you watch videos on it, and then you look at Instagram posts that other people are writing. But the funny thing is, I was writing a fiction novel. It was like my first thing. I was writing a book about this dude, blah blah, whatever. He's in the military, or he's a contractor, etc. I kind of got inspired from another novel that I read, so I wanted to write my own book. I thought this would be cool. I love reading, like mostly like military fictions and stuff like Tom Clancy, and even like the Jack Carr novels. I like this a lot. And at the same time, while I was writing this, I was working on my group's or my team's handbook or binder. And after like writing through this entire binder, I don't know how long it took me to write it, but we did specifics on mostly like the tactical SOPs of like what, let's say, like how many chem lights are we going to carry? Like what are the chem lights mean from to the overarching? What are we going to do when we react contact from a Ranger file on the right side or left side, or we take contact on the rear from a Ranger file or a staggered column? What happens if we take contact during a leader's recon, etc. So going through like all these contingencies, all these different SOPs, I was like thinking, there's nowhere out there that has these laid out simply in simplicity terms, in layman terms. So that's kind of what inspired me, was working on our team binder and then putting not exactly what we were using, but the general idea of fire maneuver doctrine, and putting examples of like basic examples and pictures and where do I need to start is really the biggest thing. Where do I start? So I thought this was a good prepper book. So that's kind of how I got inspired. And I think it took me like 6 months roughly to finish it. And that's including people reading it, like getting like a little bit of validation of like, yeah, this is good information, this isn't bullshit, as well as like my editor working on it, because I actually had to get an editor for this because I'm not that smart.
Gotcha. For those that haven't read the book, would you say the tempo of the book kind of favors Army or Marine Corps doctrine? Is there a specific doctrine that kind of guided you through all this, or did you just kind of pick bits and pieces of everything that you've learned and experienced and everything and just kind of create your own little masterpiece?
I say I use a lot of terms from the Marine Corps because most of the dudes I was training with were Marines. But there's Ranger Handbook pictures in there too. So like some of the patrolling stuff, I'll take like the cigar shape of hastily occupying an ORP. Like I took that directly from the Ranger Handbook. The picture of the Gotwa, like what is a Gotwa, and then what's an LR or Leader's Recon. So I say a lot of it is kind of like a mixture, which might suck for some people if you already know like Army or you already know Marine Corps. It might be conflicting, but the principle of fire maneuver is the same for both. It's just, I guess you could say it's a little bit different for how they go about doing stuff. But that being said, it's just a mixture between the both. I don't think it's a good idea to only use one book as your guideline. I think you should take bits and pieces from all different books. You shouldn't narrow your scope on one thing. That being said, like hand and arm signals, you should probably stick with one or the other and then make your own, because there's not hand arm signals for everything, right? So
would you say that it was easier or harder to kind of to keep the book at the length that it's at. It's 136 pages for those that have not got it. So it's a decent little manual. It's not too short, and it's definitely not too long, but it's a good length. Was it easy to kind of condense it to 136, or did you feel like you kind of had to stretch it to 136?
I would say I wasn't totally focused on how long the book was.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to make sure that the basics and fundamentals were there, and that's just kind of how it ended up that long.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like, if the book was 50 pages, it's 50 pages.
Sure,
Granted, the
yeah.
book's only, I think it's like 6x9 is how big, 6 inches by 9 inches, I think.
I guess
That's how big the book is.
I should rephrase the question. Did you ever feel like, was there ever a version of the book before you got to the final copy where you're like, this is too long or this is too complex and I need to scale it down? Like, how did that process kind of go?
I'll say sometimes when I first wrote it, I had a lot of like step 1, step 2, step 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's cool and all, but I don't want dudes just to copy and paste this. I want them to think a little bit more for themselves. Granted, for I think it's the ambush section of patrolling, I talk about, like, I think that's what it is. At least I can't remember. But establishing how to set up an ambush, like the steps 1 through, I think there's like 12 or something like that. But trying to get the general idea of like, what does it mean? Like, what is a patrol base? Like, I don't know what that means. Is it a base that moves around, or is it a base, or what the fuck's a patrol? So, I think I write like little bit paragraphs on each little section that gives you enough information, but it's not overwhelming. Like, how do I select a PB? Here's 15 items, or how do I establish or not establish, but how do I pick a good rally point? And here's the list of 15 items. Like, you can go look up and read that, but what is a rally point? I don't understand like the purpose of that. When do I use it? When should I not use it? Etc. So I guess I got away from writing bullet points was my biggest difference from the original draft versus the final draft.
Gotcha. And why did you decide to settle on the name the Modern Minuteman instead of, like another title or, term that's kind of been used recently in regards to like the tactical civilian? Why was the Modern Minuteman, the kind of the go-to for this?
So an individual and I guess I can say his name now because he kind of gave me permission for my next book. His name's Peter. Mm-hmm. He's a big influence on this stuff, like just this book and training and everything. Him and I were talking about what's like a good organizational setup or organization setup that the military uses that any citizen can use that has literally no military background, but they can follow this little framework. Mm-hmm. So his experience, because he's a special operator, so his experience for that and realizing that ODAs have a good framework for people to use because they're only 12-man teams, right? So 12 isn't. I guess you can kind of understand how hard it is to recruit people into your team. It's not just because you have to vet them, but it's just talking to Tyler about this, like the 10% rule of people actually are about it. So the 100%, like, say you have 10 dudes that want to actually, they come out to train with you, mm-hmm. Only one of those guys is actually going to stick with it. I would say
that's probably a fair estimate. I would say my numbers, in my experience, are a little higher than that. But from what I've gathered from other people, it definitely seems like true retention or just even continuation of training is definitely lower than probably my own self-experience.
Yeah. So back to I guess where you're asking the original question, the Modern Minuteman, why did I choose that? Because it's modern time, a little bit different than what the Minuteman was back then. My idea of a Minuteman is the ODA model, and we call it the ODM, Operational Detachment Mike or / Minuteman. Mm-hmm. The principle of that is your 12-man team is very organized. Mm-hmm. Everyone's cross-trained because that's what ODAs do. You cross-train on stuff. And you train other guys to a quality level. And your other, I guess your secondary role to that is you can actually do these operations quotes, if shit ever happens, etc. So we're training to a Minuteman level that we can quickly react to something. And I believe that the Minuteman principle from 1760, or say, I guess 1765, around that time, I can't remember. I wrote in the next book of the history of it, because I love the history of our ancestry of when the Minuteman came about. But I guess I kind of also used it as advertisement tool a little bit.
Sure,
because
that's all part of it.
Trying to build away from the connotation that the Minuteman's cringy, because it's not cringy.
I like the fact that you built when the way this book is written, you've kind of built things out around a 12 plus one man squad, which is a little bit more of a traditional Marine Corps way of looking at things. There's a lot of guys that like 8+1s, and some guys like 9+1s for 3-man fire teams. I really like 3 fire teams of 4, and I think it is a very good force projection in a sense. You can get a lot done with 12 dudes in comparison to 8, and you really fulfill out the roles and responsibilities of like a combat patrol between your assault, your support, and your security element. That would be a lot harder to break down in comparison to like the traditional small unit tactics books. I forget who wrote the other really popular one, but he does his on an Alpha Bravo team, so 8+1. And it just seems like you're short on responsibilities in a sense. I really like having the extra guns around, having the extra hands, the extra knowledge, and it spreads out the responsibilities a little bit better, because there's, even outside of just assault, support, security, there's a ton of stuff that goes into it. And you talk about it some in the book, between who is your designated EPW guys, who's your comms guy, do you have a medic in your squad, do you have an aid litter team, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of responsibilities go around, and 8-man squads is definitely kind of skimpy in a sense.
Yep, and I would say shooting for that 13 is a good term, even though I'm saying like the ODM or the ODA stuff is 12-man team. But like you said, the 13-man team, you have your SL, then you have your 3 fire teams, and then so he can focus on the bigger picture, maneuvering everyone.
Sure.
While your guys are minus the FTLs are focusing on fighting, actually.
One of the best pieces of advice an old infantry buddy of mine ever said was that a squad leader's most important weapons is his fire team, is his fire teams, and that separating your squad leader or your element leader, depending on what you're referring to that role as, separating him from the teams and allowing him to kind of take that step back and really implement his teams in a methodical manner, I think makes a really big difference versus him kind of being put into a team and trying to do squad leader type tasks.
Yeah, that's why I put the SL, I use patrol leader, because I'm kind of using a little bit a mixture of Marine and Army terms, but that's why I put the patrol leader in the support element, so he can see the bigger thing. I don't want him essentially on the assault element, while I can have the assistant patrol leader be my eyes and ears up there for me. But this is just things I was taught, right? Because I was never taught this in a professional military sense. I'm taught from guys who've gone out there and actually done it overseas or trained it, because that's their livelihood, right? Because I don't train this at work.
So what does your you said you're already working on a second book. What if any can you give us about that? What is that focusing more around in comparison to what this book does?
So the second book, working title, The Team, is focusing on establishing your 12-man ODM/ODA team. The biggest thing is understanding what is this model we came up with, Peter and I came up with. What do the leadership roles look like beyond the support, security, assault, that like rifleman squad, right? Because they can do that because it's a 12-man team. Granted, the patrol leader is now going to be within a fire team as one of those 4-mans. But the bigger thing, there's a lot more than just being support, security, assault, right? Actually going out on a patrol, you have to worry about logistics, everything. You have to worry about training, cross-training, looking at the bigger picture, propaganda, working on your comms equipment, buying gear for your team. So I wanted to break it down and like give out a framework that guys can use, because no one, I'm not saying no one because maybe I don't know who's posted about this, or I haven't seen it in any other book of an organizational framework, like teaching like group development. How do I develop my group? How do I establish an SOP? How do I come up with qualifications is a big thing I talk about in the book. What are the tasks I need to know as a baseline rifleman? Like, what do I need to know? Basic fieldcraft. How can I go out and acquire food? How much food should I be stocking up? I mean, I don't really go into that yet. I'm only about 50 pages into this book right now. Then how do you set up a team binder and financing? Yeah, that's like the biggest things. I guess I hopefully I answered your question.
Oh yeah, I would say that definitely answers it. Sounds like the second book definitely is a lot more. It almost seems like it's more into the support and logistics side of it.
I would say yes.
In comparison to, like,
I
how
barely
this
talk
is-
about any tactics at all, if any.
And I think that's something a lot of people are starting to realize, is that the support and logistics is just so important. It doesn't matter if you've got 5 guys or you got 50 guys. Some form of support and logistics and supply has to be taken into consideration, because if you're a civilian group, let's just take the whole cool guy, small unit tactics side out of it. If you're some sort of civilian group, you probably have families that you consider. That's your responsibility if anything were to ever happen, and so on and so forth. And even supporting all of those families will require logistics, especially if we start talking about families getting together at one or a few sites. That's a lot of logistics. That's a lot of moving parts, especially if you can't just go to your local store anymore, fill up a grocery cart, and go home like nothing ever happened. So support and logistics is definitely huge.
And people seem to forget to realize, let's say we're like our blackout plan, right? Is we're all going to meet up at this guy's house, but what about my family? Like, how am I going to bring them out there? Do I have enough food for my family? Does everyone else have food for their family? How are we going to support each other during this worst case scenario portion?
Yeah.
Like you said, there's a lot more than it goes into just war fighting. Like, that stuff's fun. I love learning about all the small unit tactics and the little tidbits and tricks that people come up with. Like, I love that shit. It's so much fun. But you also, on the flip side of the coin, you have to realize it's more than that.
There's a few things up on our YouTube page for the Modern Minuteman series, over like structure and stuff like that. I've got a ton of notes in my phone of different videos to make as far as like support and logistics go, but I'm waiting until like we have our stuff squared away to have the stuff to provide a better like a visual experience to go with the YouTube. Like my local guys, we've got a fair amount of logistics set up, probably in comparison to most, but it's not to the point where I would want to make a video about it and be like, this is some of the stuff you should do, or you should get, or you should set up, or whatnot. Like, we're kind of still in that growth phase, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I think guys,
I'm restarting, so I'm working on all this stuff again. I have to find another team.
I think guys just need to get over their fear of exposure, in a sense. Being cautious and maintaining a level of OPSEC is important. Yes, 100%. Don't deny that at all. But some of these guys that are good at making videos or good speakers and whatnot, we need more guys to talk about how to develop groups better and show examples and talk about their experiences, the good, the bad, and whatnot, and kind of get over the thought that if you post one thing that the feds are just going to show up at your door and, shoot your dog. We got to kind of grow past that a little bit in the community, I think. I mean, I don't.
Can we talk about the experience I kind of had with starting my own group
Sure.
and how it developed over time.
Yeah.
So I moved, so it kind of sucks that I lost all that work that I had done with all those guys. But in the very beginning, I can't remember how we all met up together, but we all met up at someone's house, right? So there's a bunch of random dudes showing up at this dude's house. Thankfully, everyone who went was like cool, except for one dude who he just like ghosted us. We never saw him again. But we all showed up in our gear, whatever. We went shooting. We didn't really have a plan at all. Our plan was to show up to this person's house, their land, go shoot, and that was it. Like, it wasn't very organized. We talked about having like some hip pocket class. Like, one of the guys is a what do you call it, paramedic, so he's gonna like teach us some basics of the TCCC and CPR stuff. So we did go over that, but beyond our plan, it wasn't organized. We're like, we're not gonna do these certain drills. Over time, I kind of realized that our time is very important to attending these events, because we were only able to really do it once a month, which kind of stunk. I wish I could do it more, but we're kind of spread out all over the state of North Carolina. And the problem with North Carolina is it's not that we're all spread out, it's just it takes forever to get anywhere.
It does.
You try to go like 40 miles and it's like hour and a half. It sucks. It's ridiculous. I hate how it's set up there. Anyway, that's not really important, but so time is important to everyone. So I took it upon myself as the impromptu leader, because I was kind of inviting people to the group. The guys already in the group were like, hey, my friend, or this guy I met on Instagram, he's kind of interested. So we started, like, I had a core group of guys. There's, let's say, like 5 of us. They were like, we're dead set, like, we're going to go do this if shit happens. Like, this is our plan. But we realized we needed more people because our experience was kind of limited. I was the only dude who was in the military. And even that, being in the military, my experience of any of this stuff is pretty much nothing. Like, I learned how to read when I was in kindergarten, but beyond that. So realizing that time was limited, we needed to make the most of it. I would come up with like an op schedule of like, hey, we're going to do this from this time. Everyone shows up at 0800. Between this time block, we're going to do this. That's pretty much what it became. And let's say Saturday was the day we're going to go do the exercise or to go train. Friday night on Discord, we would go through a PowerPoint I made of going exactly what you need to pack or make sure you have. I mean, I kind of give out a packing list earlier, but this is what's going to happen. Make sure to bring this amount of water. Like, this is your ammo count requirement. And basically, just a general outline of what we're going to do, so dudes aren't showing up like, or just sitting around like bullshitting, wasting everyone's time. Because some guys are driving like 3 to 4 hours for these things. Then we kind of realized that we needed to weed out the dudes who weren't really about it. And to do that, I came up with a very simple PT test that everyone had to do monthly. And it was kind of like Scout's honor, like, hey, this is my score of what I got. It was just push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups. Originally, it was only a mile run, and then later on, we added a 3-mile ruck time. And it had to be under a certain timeline. I think it was like 50 minutes, so it wasn't bad. And it was like 45-pound ruck or something. So we wanted to weed out the dudes who weren't about it. My principle was, if they can't do this PT test monthly, then I'm not going to be able to trust them to do anything else, because this is the bare minimum. Like, show up and do this PT test. It's not saying that it's an easy PT test for everyone, because not everyone's in the same, like you and I, we're probably not on the same physical level, right? So I was giving dudes the benefit of doubt. Like, it wasn't a pass or fail thing. It was just, do it. I don't care if you failed it. But some guys couldn't even do that. They could even fail it. Or they could even lie to me, like, hey, here's my fake stats or whatever. I don't fucking know. But so we had to weed out people. With that test, this is very recently, before I left, I came out, or we decided to use a kind of like an assessment selection framework of 3 different phases. Phase 1 was you had to pass the PT test. And you also had to tell me, like, hey, I want to be, like, I'm really into this, like, I'm 100% want to be, like, training, and I want to be part of the team. So phase 1 was that. Phase 2 was you had to pass all these different critical task evaluations. And that means like different tasks. Like I didn't know. You needed to know basic field craft, basic fundamentals of maneuver, or fire and maneuver, stuff like that, of that sense. And then beyond, we didn't really get to implement this because I left. But phase 3 was like a test of you. Have you heard about the what do they call the Interminables podcast or their page or anything?
I don't think I'm familiar.
Okay. Originally they sent me their little framework of their group in Texas of what it looked like, and it kind of inspired me to take their little. They do like a what the fuck do they call it? I'm probably gonna mess up the name, but it's like a shortened Ranger school. Basically, what this leadership course they have is like 3 days or something. So I wanted to kind of like implement something like that of taking all these skills that a dude learned, and he goes through this test or FTX, ITX, whatever you want to call it, just a training exercise, so they can combine all their skills they learned. And once they pass that phase 3, then they become a team member. Like you get frogged, so stuff like that. If you don't know what frogging means, how do I explain it? Can you explain frogging? Because I'm gonna fuck it up.
Not without knowing how you do it.
So, because I wear OCPs now, right? So if you get promoted, we put our patch there, and you get like punched there because we don't have any. We don't wear like our dress blues or anything for when we get promoted. Typically,
okay. See,
it's not like it's not a huge ceremony or anything like that.
Yeah, in the Marine Corps, we never wore patches. We pinned because we'd have the rank on our collars.
Right.
And you take the backing off the back of your rank, and then you get hit a bunch of times.
I guess the caveat of that is when we get our 5-level skill badge, we wear like the frogs, right? So you get punched through that too, which is like a pin-on ceremony. That's not true of any of my leadership listening. We don't frog anyone. So
all of this
I
is,
made that
of
up.
course, in Minecraft.
Yeah, Minecraft, Christian server.
Yeah, I definitely think, and we've kind of, my local guys, we've all moved towards implementing some sort of like joining process in a sense. We don't have a PT test, although one is being written right now to kind of like set a standard. But I like to throw some really crazy trainings at my guys every couple months. That way it really sucks for them, and they go, I'm out of shape. I need to not suck. But we have what we call the probationary period. So when you come to your first meeting, if leadership gives that person the thumbs up to like continue coming to events and training and all that, you have to come to 2 additional training days within a certain time period for a total of 3 attended trainings, and then you're off probation and considered like a normal group member. We implement that actually not too long ago, because we'd have guys that would come to a single training and be like, yeah, I'd like to do this, because like we never consider guys part of the group. We don't put them in group chats, nothing, until they start coming to events, because I hate group messages of people that don't show up to their stuff.
You're hunting them down. You're like, where the fuck are you? You say you're coming?
Yeah. But we'd have guys that would show up to like a training or 2 in the beginning, and then they would just completely drop off, and then we'd have to eventually kick dudes, because while and I've talked about on other podcasts and YouTube videos, while you as a person in a leadership position, leading a civilian group of guys, should have some sort of understanding to the excuse life happens. People die, kids are born, like that kind of stuff happens, and like sometimes guys need to just take a step away for a second. They'll be back in a month or 2. But there's a difference between like, hey, I just had a kid, I'm gonna take 30 days off, and I just forgot we had training for the 4th time in a row. Like that kind of stuff's not acceptable. So I always encourage guys to set some sort of attendance or participation expectation, and of course you can judge this on a case by case basis. But just having a general standard that everyone knows and understands, one, will help retention, because you're holding everyone to a higher standard, and you're presenting yourself as a more professional organization. But it'll also help you weed out the undedicated, or in just plain terms, the shitbags a whole lot more, because there are some guys who, like you say, really aren't about it. They kind of want to just join a group of guys that just go to the range, once or twice a month, and then you show up and you guys are doing medical and making, HF dipoles, and you're like, what the hell is this? So it definitely helps kind of hold the group accountable.
Agreed. You don't want the like the good old boys club, right? It's like a gun club to them, but that's not what it is.
And that's
what it shouldn't be.
And that's fine. Those kind of things have their place. And if you're one of those groups that you guys don't get into the logistics and the command structure and the comms and all that, you guys just are guys that like to shoot together. Hey, that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there's, especially in this day and age, with as much as things have changed through influence on social media and the events of the world, so on and so forth, there's definitely a higher demand for, more professional and high standard held groups with a lot more purpose and a lot more organization.
Without purpose or direction, it's just pointless, essentially. I think I talked about that with Tyler. Like, morality is my biggest thing I look for in someone who shares the same morals as me. Mm-hmm. If we can't agree on the morals, then I probably don't want to be training with you. Not saying like you're a bad person, but our difference of where my morality is derived from, where your morality is derived from, it's kind of like it's conflicting enough that I don't want to be with someone like that. Like I guess I don't know if that's like not condescending, but a terrible way to look at it.
Can you provide an example for those that may not understand where you're coming from?
So let's say, I guess abortion's like a big thing. Recently, like the Roe v. Wade stuff. I mean, that happened a while ago when they gave it to the state level, right? If someone doesn't agree with me on that, saying that like I'm pro-life, right? I'm Catholic. I go with pretty much the majority of what the church states. Doesn't mean I agree with everything, but on this topic, I do agree with it. So the example of that would be, I asked the dude, like, hey, are you pro-life? Like, are you okay with getting an abortion or something? And he's like, no, I think they should do whatever the fuck they want. I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from, but no thanks. I'll pass on you. A big thing when on those like find your tribe posts, I'll always be like, I guess I didn't do it on the last one. Usually I'll write Christians only, and that doesn't mean you have to be like a perfect Christian. I'm not a perfect Christian. I don't know any perfect Christians. No one's perfect. But practicing, right, we share this sense of morality. Our morality is derived from God and Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So I want men who are strong in their convictions and not someone, I don't know if you're Christian or agnostic, so I don't want to like offend you or anything, but someone who's agnostic, they're like in the middle. They're not either or. I'd rather, not that I want to train with an atheist or something, but I'd rather train with an atheist than someone who's agnostic, because their conviction is, oh, I can go either way, and I don't like people who are flippy or wishy-washy. I want someone who's either full tilt or nothing at all, I guess you could say. But that's just how I am. That's how I kind of weed out the weak, or weed out the guys I don't want to train with. Yeah, that's kind of a tangent I just went on. I don't think that even makes any sense to you. Hopefully I didn't offend you.
No, no, you say whatever you want. I grew up Catholic. However, once I reached probably like 22, I moved away from the Catholic Church and really any organized church. I think it was a mix between no longer being able to justify the corruption of the church upon the many denominations, and then also my distrust for government, because it's historically known that governments have always manipulated and or changed religion to achieve political goals. So though I still call myself Christian, I don't necessarily align with any one denomination or like way of thinking. I find the way I always kind of explain to people is I find God more in people and in my surroundings, like nature and stuff, than I do with like other people of my denomination in a church. Whereas I used to a lot, but like at this point, me personally, I have too much distrust for government and large organizations that I don't see God in it anymore, in a sense. Like I feel like they've tainted God, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Men are corruptible, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have free will, so nothing is going to be perfect. So I don't disagree with that. There is corruption in the church or any other Christian faith, or their churches specifically. But that doesn't deter me away from them. But that's just kind of like our difference of it.
Sure.
Which I don't like a man like you whose convictions are like, I believe in Jesus Christ, right? I'm a Christian, but I don't believe in a specific church necessarily. Like I would want someone like you because you're strong in your conviction of like, I love Jesus Christ, but I distrust the church for these X amount of reasons or these specific reasons or any reason at all. Your conviction is there. And that's the most important thing is someone, to me specifically, is that they believe in Jesus Christ, or I guess the Bible. So yeah, I mean, we kind of agree to disagree. Like I don't hate people because they don't believe in Jesus. I don't hate Muslims. I don't hate Jews, etc. But I'm not like my team, right, or whatever. I'm not in the military in this aspect, so I can pick and choose. Like we can pick whatever gear we want. Like if it's your line unit, you can only use probably what your command tells you can use. But
yeah,
you and I, our teams aren't military, so we can buy whatever we want. We can use whatever we want. We can pick and choose. We don't have to deal with these shitbags who don't want to be there, but they just do it because they're bored or they want to belong to something, I guess. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. And part of that, like that kind of selection process you're talking about comes from whether you're trying to develop, because there's many different things when it comes to organized filling groups. You have MAGs, mutual assistance groups. You have like actual community-based volunteer groups. You have the unorganized militia. Like there's so many different things that go into it. So it depends, I guess, what you're trying to accomplish that kind of allows you to implement said limitations or not. So like for us, for all my local guys, though a lot of them are Christian based or have some sort of Christian sense to them, there are some that aren't super strong in their faith, but their sense of principle and what they believe is right or wrong and their general thoughts of what makes a good community and a good family family atmosphere agrees with the way that a lot of the other guys in the group think. And I guess it really just kind of depends, like, what sense of principle and morality do you expect everyone to share within your group? Like, I expect all of my guys to believe in a good family household, obviously, small non-interfering government, stuff like that. But I personally would not disqualify someone if they did not share the same spiritual outlook as I did, so long as they are of good principle and make a good member of the community. If that makes sense at all.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
That's just
everyone's gonna be different, right? No one's gonna be the exact same way. But as long as you stick with, don't be wishy-washy with how you're gonna. Not saying that you do this, but other people don't be wishy-washy with your selection process. Like, keep it the same for everyone, because if you don't have this framework, then you're gonna let those dudes slip through the cracks. Like, it's gonna happen probably regardless if you're wishy-washy or not. But you're trying to keep your framework as firm as you can to limit those shitbags to joining. Yeah. And shitbags meaning, like I said, dudes who aren't actually about it. They're just there for the IG clout, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
And that kind of goes for everything. You have to stick to the standards that you've put into place, whether it's your joining requirements, whether it's your attendance requirements, whatever that is. There may eventually come a time where, like, there's a guy in the group that you think's really cool. You could call him a friend now, so on and so forth. But he just doesn't attend trainings anymore, and you gotta kick him, and you gotta be that guy, and that's kind of a burden, and that falls onto leadership, is that a lot of the guys in the group don't have to necessarily worry about those decisions. They don't have to make those awkward confrontations. But you, as a leader, if you're the leader of your group or you're in a leadership position, that's the responsibility that you have. And that's just how it is. Those decisions have to be made by somebody.
Right. I actually had a question for you. You said earlier you have like your guys who they're like before they become a member, right? Mm-hmm. Do you guys, I don't like minus OPSEC stuff, I mean, we cut this out if we have to. Do you have like a team, or is like once they go through that probation period, they're part of the group, they're part of the team?
So in the simplest way I could put it is, once you get through the probationary period and you've showed dedication, you line up well with the guys, there's no issues, you become a member of the overall group, and then you are given a position in what unit or element, depending on the word you want to use, that you are a part of.
Right. Okay.
Because everybody breaks down into your basically like your unit. Like if you were to show up to a company, like when you're in the military, you're like fresh out of schoolhouse, and they're like, hey, you're going to such and such shop, or you're going to this section of the company or the battalion or whatever the hell it is. It's kind of like that.
Makes sense to me. I was just wondering, maybe other people will. I feel like when you listen to these podcasts, you always learn something different. Listening, because I listened to the one with the Pennsylvania guy. I cannot remember what they're called. Right?
Pennsylvania Mountain Rangers.
Yeah.
PMR?
So listen to him, like that was a good one. Like that guy, even though he said he's not a good public speaker, he spoke pretty well. I learned some stuff like the financing stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of, that's like something I haven't really heard about. Like we kind of talked about it before in my other group, but we never really got into a way of implementing it. But the way he spoke about implementing it, and I think you talked about how you guys do it too, like having like a treasurer sort of person.
Yeah, finance is huge.
Smart.
We have a logistics officer, since the group is not, a company or battalion size organization. The logistics officer takes over the funds as well. So he manages the fund. Everybody donates $20 a month, and we use it to fund certain group projects, whether it be medical supplies, whether it's buying equipment to support our level of radio equipment. Right now, we're setting up a response trailer. So it's an enclosed trailer, like a bumper pull trailer, that is filled with a ton of different mission-driven supplies. That's mainly kind of focused around humanitarian in a sense, but it could be used for operational, depending on what you're talking about. But all this kind of stuff, I mean, when you really start getting more settled into your group and your guys' purpose and what everything you guys are trying to achieve, you have two routes that you can go. You go one route where you're just constantly asking guys for money, or there's just a few limited individuals that have those spare expenses that are just bearing the cost of everything, or everybody just sets that small bare amount. It just adds up over time. You just start knocking out projects. Like the very first thing we ever bought with our group fund was a North American Rescue Talon 2 collapsible stretcher.
Nice.
And we still have to this day, and they're glad that they have it, because I make them drag around dummies in each other, and they're definitely glad that they have that.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I mean, finances plays a huge role into it. The more guys you get, the more billets are established, and the more tasks you can take on. And then, I can speak for myself. You as an individual in a leadership position are kind of the founder of the group. In those beginning stages, when you have a small amount of guys, like less than 10 dudes, you can do pretty much everything yourself. You kind of write the trainings, you track what little supplies you guys have, so on and so forth. Like, it's not a big deal. Once you get over a certain threshold, it becomes a lot of responsibility, and you're trying to take on a lot more tasks and manage more people, and it just becomes too much, just like it does in the normal workplace. The regional manager doesn't oversee every single cashier and truck driver and all that kind of stuff. There's managers under him and then managers under him, and it's so on and so forth, and everybody gets certain responsibilities. It's the same way with all of this.
Agreed. You need to delegate specific functions and roles for each positional, so you don't become burnt out. If the commander, commander of the group or leader of the group, you'll get burnt out very quickly.
Oh yeah, and that's why it's important that you set a good framework from the beginning, and then you also make kind of like roles and responsibility expectations, clear. Is that once you do start to grow, it kind of helps self-run stuff. There's obviously going to be bumpy roads and whatnot because we're all kind of doing something that's never really been done. Like there's no big books backed with hundreds of years of experience of how to run unfunded, unorganized civilian groups with a purpose of anything under the sun.
Yeah, sure.
Like your entire group's purpose one day could just amount to you responding to this single tornado in the town over, or it could eventually resolute to you fighting off a damn communist revolution in an area near you. Like, I mean, the possibilities are extremely wide.
Train for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, hopefully this was all just for fun.
Yeah, I think I was just watching a podcast with Fred Baker for Counting Coup with Redacted. I think that's what the podcast is called. And crap, I forgot where I was going with this. He's talking about how can you deal with realizing that all this stuff we learn, all this training we do, and we never get to use it. Like, how do you deal with that mindset? Do you have a solution to that? I'm kind of asking you a question now.
Okay. It definitely.
You on the spot.
So just so I understand the question is, how do you deal with doing all this training and preparing, and then never necessarily getting to use it on a normal basis?
That and kind of understanding that you probably will never get to use it.
I think.
Yeah.
I think there's kind of two answers to this. One, it's a security blanket. Like I don't have a home security system for my house because there's somebody actively in it right now. I have a home security system because one day somebody may break into my house. But however, I could pay for a home security system for the next 65 years until I die, and it never get tripped by a break-in or anything like that one time. So I think it's kind of in that same principle. Same thing with like home insurance or car insurance. You can go your entire life and never use your insurance, but the kind of sense of security that it gives you and that sense of comfort, just kind of like how the basic principle of prepping is kind of nice to a lot of guys. Some guys, they have a wife, they have 2 or 3 kids. It's nice when they have a network of people they can lean on both during times of crisis and just in normal everyday life. I comfort and counsel a ton of my guys through all of life's crappy, unfortunate events. And absolutely none of them have anything to do with the fact that they lost their fire team while assaulting a trench, or that one medic just wasn't able to save that guy during the medevac, or anything like that. Yeah. It's just normal everyday stuff. So the support network is nice. But at the same time, I think it's important for us to understand, and important for us bringing up future generations, the mindset of break glass in case of emergency. It is not. There will always be a disaster to come, whether it happens in 1 year or whether it happens in 100 years. Some sort of disaster, war, plague, famine, whatever it is, will come again. The United States is not special. North America is not special. You are not special because you live in insert, hick town here. Eventually, challenges and some level of basically battle between good and evil will arise again to some extent, and you kind of just got to be prepared for that. It's a lot better to be prepared for that and spend a bunch of time and money right now doing that than in 2 years or something you get caught with your pants down. You don't know anybody, you didn't train for anything, you don't have any food, and now the grocery stores are shut down because someone blew up a highway with a truck bomb because they're mad about an election, and now you're just kind of stuck in this awkward position.
That was kind of the answer I was expecting. Insurance. That's really what it comes down to.
It's just
And,
insurance in the end. Plus, it's fun.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of guys don't like to talk about. Is that it is fun. War is not
Agreed.
fun by any means. I've been to some crappy corners of the world. None of that is fun. However, being here in the U.S. and going with your buddies to the woods, doing a patrol exercise, going to the range, tinkering with comms, doing all that kind of stuff, that stuff's fun. And I think we, as a community, need to just accept that as an answer. We don't all have to be Mr. Cool Guy serious all the time. Sometimes this stuff's just fun.
I think it's a lot of fun.
I think it's a ton of fun.
And just have a positive mindset.
Sure.
And I guess, what's that quote? The Chinese proverb, Confucius, I'm just going to make it up that Confucius said it. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war.
Yeah,
it's kind
absolutely.
of the mindset that we have to hold to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully that.
I
that
was just wondering. Yeah, it did. This is my podcast now. I asked the questions here. I'm
this
the captain
is the Jon
now.
Case Podcast.
Yeah, you guys are tuning into the Jon Case Podcast, featuring Everyday Citizens Tactical. Welcome to my podcast that I stole.
No, that was a good question though. I think a lot of guys kind of they kind of get bummed out. They're like, man, I've been training with these guys for 2 years now. I haven't got to shoot any rebel commies in the face, blah 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 blah. But like, that's cool. That's cool. I like warm showers and cold beer on demand. That kind of stuff is enjoyable to me. And I don't think it's a lot of like bro vets on the internet are like, you don't know what war's like. Like people understand what war is like. There is a bit of a glorification and desensitization. Sorry, words are hard. I'm sure everybody knows what I mean. There's a desensitization to what conflict truly is, but everybody understands that kind of stuff sucks. In my mind, just seeing the direction of the way the country is going, whether it's economically, politically, socially, whatever it might be, I'm always of the mindset of I'd rather just get it done sooner than later. Some guys have kids right now, like, small children, and they're like, oh, this is a horrible time. But to me, it's kind of like, for those that don't know, this podcast is being recorded right at the end of May right now. So the whole issue with the defaults and the debt ceiling has not come to conclusion yet. But for me, I would rather us just default now and get this issue over with and try to make better financial decisions moving forward and create a better economy afterwards than for it to happen in 10 or 12 years when I'm more settled into a life with more economic responsibilities and kids and all that kind of stuff. And it's just going to be even worse then because we're even more in debt and who knows what's going to happen. I think a lot of guys get stuck in that kind of like in the waiting game mindset. Like, when's it going to happen? Like, yeah, it's going to eventually happen, but none of us know when it is going to happen, whatever it is.
Yeah, all you can do is prepare for it.
It's all you can really do in the end. It's just prepare and hope that you're somewhat ready when the time comes.
Are you somewhat ready? Because I'm not somewhat ready. I mean, I'm not all the way ready. No one's going to be all the way ready. So,
It's
your best you can do.
It's funny because I was actually talking and or thinking about that very much recently. So today, before this podcast, and the second I got off from the firehouse, I went to the gym after work, and then as soon as I got home from the gym, from then until we started this podcast, so probably 5 hours worth, I have been like going through all of my preps in every single room of the house and just like taking notes and like taking it all in and trying to like figure out where my gaps are and everything. I've got a lot of shit because I've been a prepper for a really long time.
Right.
And it's like, I have probably more diverse preps than a lot of dudes. But at the same time, I don't feel ready. Like I'm just constantly like, damn, I got a gap here. I got a gap here. Well, I had this, but this is expired. It's like, it's a never ending process. You start with a really simple mindset. You're like, I just need some food, some way to collect water, blah, blah. And then you're like, well, then I need this. Then I need to be able to sustain this. And I need this. And it's just, it never ends. You're always just constantly expanding.
I think we need to realize that the end goal isn't to be surviving, I guess, in that sense. Like, I don't want to be stuck surviving, fighting for our lives for the rest of my life, and let's say the next couple of years when shit happens, per se, if that does happen. Like, I enjoy my life right now. I mean, shit still sucks sometimes, but life isn't hard necessarily. Not saying like my life is super easy, or I'm trying to say like, oh, my life's better than anyone else's, but my end goal is not to be stuck in a survival mode 24/7, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Bear from Bear Independent, he owns Refuge Medical, if you're familiar with them. He has the saying, sustain normalcy for those around you. So basically the sense, the art of prepping is to, how can I best replicate my everyday life now when shit goes wrong? And he always like clarifies, he's always like, nothing's going to be the same way it is now when shit goes wrong. But can you at least mimic it to some degree? Can you not be in just constant survival and fight mode?
Yep. I agree with that.
That's definitely important. I think, yeah, prepping just never ends. It's like if you're really into gardening and whatnot, like I absolutely love gardening. I love growing food. But like I just constantly keep coming up with projects for myself. Like I'm never satisfied. I just expand and expand and expand. It is, but it's not good for my wallet.
Yeah, there's that too.
But money might not matter eventually, so whatever.
Yeah, that's why I kind of feel like this is probably terrible investment advice, but I invest in tangible things that I could trade, or rather than putting it in the stock market, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I'd rather have things I can use.
Sure.
Because the internet's gonna go down or something like that.
Yeah, I have. I can publicly say that my savings account is not very impressive, but I do have a very extensive garden and chickens and dry food preps and comms equipment, and just like I agree with you. I would rather somebody invest in a ton of tangible stuff than have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars tied up in stock with no preps. Like having thousands of dollars in stocks and rental properties and all this kind of stuff is great until that stuff doesn't matter at all anymore.
Agreed.
And that's not to say that you shouldn't do that kind of stuff. But if you're the type of person, you're listening and you're like, yeah, I've got, $14,000 tied up in stocks, and then I've got another $22,000 in my 401k, and I have this rental property I'm working on right now, but I have a very basic AR build with no plate carrier, or you have a plate carrier with no plates, and you have zero food, zero sustainment gear for your vehicle, no comms equipment. You're just kind of like, yeah, I've got my rifle. Like, that does you and those in your life no good. Because really, at the end of the day,
I could just steal it from someone, though.
Oh,
wait a minute.
I hate that so much, because there are people like in my life, like at work or whatever, that like do have that mindset. They're like, yeah, when I need something, I'm just gonna start taking it from other people. I'm like, that's gonna work until it doesn't.
And that's also a bad mindset to hold, because now you're letting your morals go. Yeah. I think I'm right. Oh, good.
If you are of the mindset and understanding that a catastrophe may occur, and I'm responsible for my wife and my child, but instead of taking the action now to better provide for them and not put my life in danger, I'm literally going to just completely negate that responsibility, and I'll take whatever I need if I need it. That's so arrogant to me. I don't understand how you truly sit down and you're like, this is a good plan.
And historically speaking, doing that is not a good way to sustain yourself. If you're like a raider, like you're just gonna raid everyone or like ambush people and take their stuff, that's not a good way to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
Historically speaking, I read this in the book about logistics and guerrilla logistics specifically from the thesis from Colonel, whatever his name, Colonel C, we'll say, because I don't know how to pronounce his last name. They also successful guerrilla operations require support by the indigenous people, so your community, within the area of the operation for success. So maintaining popular support for the community is a necessity to sustain any type of operations long term. So you have to be resourceful, creative, and cunning to support yourselves. Does not mean you need to 99% or 100% of the time rely on taking it from, quote, the enemy. You kind of have to support yourselves in that aspect and gain the support of your local community in general to be successful. And I'm not saying like we're doing guerrilla warfare against someone, but taking that principle from guerrilla logistics, I think, is kind of applicable to sustaining your community through that means, or through your team through that means.
Sure.
That's why, like, knowing your neighbor, knowing your local politicians. I think you talked about that the last podcast, or that Pennsylvania one.
And that's
important.
And that's also, all the more reason to, organize with like-minded guys. Is that, yeah, you guys may not, bring all 12 dudes plus family to make some 100-person compound in the community. But in the event that the rule of law is gone, and there's this group of 4 or 5 dudes that are running around the community and just breaking into guys' houses or stealing from stores or doing whatever, in reality, rule of law is gone. There's no government to hold them accountable, or government's not strong enough to hold those people accountable. You and the 12, 13, or even more people that have banded to your cause, when guidance is needed, you stepped up and provided a way forward. You now go forward and deal with that problem in force, in a larger number. You're no longer a single individual trying to defend yourself from the raiders. You're a strong, banded community now defending yourself and your families and your livelihoods. Because when everything ever goes to fall apart, and one day it will at some point in time, criminal organizations and whatnot are going to run rampant, especially if you live anywhere in like the southern 20 or so states of the United States. Like, the cartel is in the U.S. and it is a concern, especially if you live in a border state. But even if you live from like Kentucky, Oklahoma, Virginia, and down, like, the cartel is still all up in there in urban areas. So there will be a power vacuum that will be filled. And whether you're prepared to deal with that or not is something you should definitely talk about amongst your guys.
Yeah. And I think another thing that no one really talks about, it kind of goes with like growing your own food, but being able to make your own stuff. Having the tools and equipment to work on your vehicles, to work on like your infrastructure. Like, if my generator breaks, how am I going to fix that? Do I have extra parts for that? Yeah. So things like that. Be able to furnish your own materials. Granted, that's beans or bullets, so should be able to do both.
As I say, without some sort of structure in society and like legitimate businesses continuing to move, in modern day, there really is no way to like make your own supplies to then create stuff. Like, none of us. I mean, it'd be really cool if we did. Like, I can pretty much promise you that's not going to happen. None of us are going to create textile machines so we can continue to make shirts and stuff. Yeah. None of us know how to weld and mold car parts on demand to like fit the part that we need for our vehicle or anything like that. It's like, though there are steps you can take to better prepare yourself to sustain your equipment and whatnot, I think the reality of the world that a lot of people don't think about is that the world that we live in is not anywhere close to natural or sustainable to any extent.
It's very fragile.
Like, if we just shut down factories and quit mass producing, everything stops. There's no more jeans. There's no more oil for your car.
No more cry pants.
There's no more cry pants. What are we going to do without more cry pants? I mean, all this stuff is gone. And that's when everybody starts wearing the same pair of pants for their entire life. That's why
everybody, like my grandpappy.
Just like your grandpappy. That's why everybody used to own pretty much nothing. And now we all have houses full of stuff.
Yeah. I'm not saying that we're going to be able to furnish, like, build a nuclear reactor or something, but
That'd be cool.
being able to work on your own stuff, I think, is important.
Oh, yeah, sure. For sure.
Granted, it's not going to be sustainable forever, but it'll get you through the times you need them.
That's one thing I've always found funny, about apocalyptic movies, like even like Mad Max or something, is that there's always like just factions of people that are like, I'm just gonna make all of this stuff, and I'm like, I don't think that would happen in real life.
How do they have so much gas for these high horsepower vehicles with like superchargers and turbos and stuff? And
yeah, like it's
like
all
monster big block Chevy V8s or something. Like, I don't understand. Like, where do they get the tires from too? They making their own tires?
Yeah, they making their own tires. They
make their own air, compressed air. Like to fill up the tires, you know. So
it's one guy's billet to fill all tires by mouth.
Hey, it's an engineering slot. He works on all the vehicles.
All of the vehicles.
You know how to change oil? All right, you're an engineer. Go ahead.
You're an engineer.
That's one of the. Yeah, go ahead.
What is obviously you've been in the quote unquote community, the Instagram community, for a few years now, and you've seen the growth since 2020. What would you say some of the most important changes you've seen people kind of start to make, or at least start to talk about, that's affected things positively?
You mean not recce builds like every other week? I think the mindset that being a lone wolf is a detriment, and that being on a team or a group, what have you, is more important, is very important, and I think people's mindset are coming towards that more, that we need each other. Humans aren't made to be lone wolves. We're made to be part of a pack, a community. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably the biggest positive I've seen in my time of community.
I would agree.
It's more than just a flat range doing 1 hour reloads, I guess.
Yeah. It's crazy, like how let's just take 10 years, 2013 to now. Like in 2013, like during like the Obama administration and the tail end of that, like it was super, super cringy to basically like be in what was then just called the militia. Like you just had militias. There was no like really mag groups at that time, or like Minuteman groups, or like anything like that, or even just groups without name. Like you just had a bunch of like random militia groups, and though they were kind of cringy and they were just made of like old fuddy type folks, it's crazy to think like that's where we were then, and that's where we are now. Where like there are I guarantee there are hundreds, if not thousands, of just small, squads, platoon-sized groups of dudes just everywhere. Some are popular. Some guys, run social media accounts and try to inspire others and post education and whatnot. But then there's just an obnoxious amount more groups that just have zero social media presence.
Those are the smart ones. Not saying I think that's your purpose of being on social media, is to inspire the guys and to put out good information, because that's my biggest thing. Mm-hmm. Is I kind of use it as a tool, right, to like find other guys, but to inspire and to have guys become creative and not be afraid of going out of their way to talk to dudes, mm-hmm. to make friends, make a team, make a mag, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, Reaper 101's talked about it, and like the many things he's talked about in like in regard to like guerrilla warfare, but like PR, public relations, and just the normalization of this kind of stuff, all of that is important. It's like, yeah, it probably is better OPSEC wise to have no social media presence and not post about this stuff at all, but there has to be some guys to do it to make it more normal and inspire other dudes to do new stuff or do things better, or however that might be, because there are tons of groups out there that aren't being led by like very experienced and well-driven veterans that have done this kind of stuff in the past. Some dudes are just groups of civilians who are of tons of different random occupations, and they're just figuring out as they go. And then having guys to either look up to or learn from, or however you want to put it, from social media, helps build the movement, build the community more and more and more, and hopefully, like in the end, that's what really helps us.
I think some of the bigger, huge social media accounts need to do a better job of spreading that it's a good idea to be a part of something bigger than yourself. Like, I know a lot of the guys who get in the military, like the guys I've talked to or like trained with, they kind of miss like that brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
Of I don't know how long you've been out for.
I got out March 2020.
Okay, so do you agree with that sentiment of like you kind of miss that brotherhood you had? I don't know how your career went, but
if I wasn't A, in the firehouse, or B, because like right after I got out of the Marine Corps, I started with my local guys and found buddies and all that. So like I've just continued to do that kind of stuff with all of these guys since like the minute I got out. But if I didn't have that, I definitely would be missing stuff a whole lot more. And even still now, like I miss, the guys, and I miss being in that environment more and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I agree. And I think for some reason, some people when they get really, really big on social media, they stray away from topics that they may even agree with because they want to maintain kind of that center line, being able to reach everybody and just have more. Yeah, gross.
Just be strong with your convictions.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a politician. Like the center line guys, like they're trying to grab both like Democrat and Republican votes. Instagram guys, not everyone, but some are just like that too. Like there's certain stuff they won't talk about. They won't go so far in this direction or that direction, or they won't talk about their experience in the military and what they learned in this topic because they think it's secretive, and guys from their community will call them, whatever name and blah, blah, blah. Not everybody. That's not everybody, but there is some extent to that still around.
Have you seen big pages post, or not even just like Instagram pages, but like big pages like post wrong information?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
So,
and I normally will not comment like in any confrontational way whatsoever. Not even if it's like a productive, like correction in a sense, or just trying to display my opinion. Specifically, just because I don't want to increase the chances of my account getting deleted at all.
So I won't name any names specifically because this was posted a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just an example that you need to vet. Not just only vet, but like not vet like who's teaching this stuff, but like go out and do your own research too to see if it lines up with Doctrine. Mm-hmm. Because there was a social media post teaching small unit tactic thing. I won't go to specifics. I don't want to get anyone mad at me for this. But it was wrong. Basically, they just taught it. They kind of mixed things up by accident. I don't know if they necessarily meant to post wrong information, but I think they mixed up two different things when they posted this video. And this page is huge, right?
Uh-huh.
So you just got to be careful sometimes with what you read on the internet. Like, I know it's like basic, or like you should understand that, like common sense to be careful what you read. But even the big guys will get stuff wrong sometimes. So just be careful what you're reading and fact checked. Not like facts, but like just go back and like trust but verify is like what we like to say, right? So,
and just understand that having a huge following means a ton of eyes are on you, and that whether you intend to do so or not, you're setting an example and you are influencing other people. So like my biggest thing is like when really big pages like the smallest thing is out of order because the Marine Corps broke my mind. Like if guys pack straps are like 3 foot long, like they're not managed at all, and you just have pack straps.
Oh, they're just dangling.
Yeah, they're just dangling all over you. Like I see that immediately, and I kind of like, I'm right. I'm kind of.
That's when you grab it when you're on patrol and just yank them.
I'm like, all right, I'm done reading scroll. Like, remember that your appearance says a lot about you.
That's true. Professionalism, looking professional.
Professionalism, yeah.
Looking like you know what you're talking about. Play the part.
Know, across a wide range of topics, everything under the sun for forever and ever and ever. But if you just don't look the part and present yourself in a respectable manner, or you constantly, do anything in that regard, then I'm not going to want to listen to what you have to say. You're never going to get me past the point of not seeing you as unprofessional to know that, okay, he actually does know what he's talking about. He just, for whatever reason, is all messed up in his appearance.
Yeah, someone might just scroll by because, like, oh, this guy looks like a bag of dicks or something.
Yeah, if you write a big 5-paragraph post, but, you just look goofy as hell in your Instagram picture that you used for this educational post, I'm just going to be like, oh, all right, never mind, scroll.
That's why you steal one from the internet. Don't even use your own picture. I'll start post random pictures that are not even me, or like Photoshop myself on there, like in the background or something. Yeah, I was there. Dude, you're wearing a coat and everyone else isn't. Oh, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Oh man, social media is an interesting place. I've met tons and tons of cool people. I like writing posts, and I like developing content. Like, I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff. But at the same time, if it wasn't for the business, if it wasn't for ECT, I don't know if I would have ever got back on social media and just kept charging the way that I did.
Have you taken a break from it before?
I took, when I got deleted in February of 2022, which was my first big delete, because that was my first account, and I was at like almost 6,000 followers on my personal, and the business had like 2,000 or 3,000 followers. So we were steady rolling, and I got deleted, and I stayed off Instagram for like a little over a month, and I came back on, and I was on for like 60 days, and I got deleted again, and then I stayed off for like another month, and then I came back on a couple more times, and I got banned like almost immediately, just like back to back to back to back. So I've taken like a month off or so before, but like while my account is up, no, I've never just like taken a break.
Yeah, I took a break from January to March, like mid-March. It was great. My account got banned, so I took a break. I was like, you know what? All this work I did, it's not worth it right now. Plus, I was PCSing and everything, so
for me, I like
just a lot going on.
I like just like documenting what I'm doing on a normal basis. The gym, the garden, gear, like all that kind of stuff, and just kind of like it kind of just is relatable to a lot of guys. It's easily relatable for a lot of guys, and it shows people like what may work, what may not work, so on and so forth.
I've learned a lot from guys posting their after action reports from their exercises, or even going for a ruck or something.
Yeah,
you can learn a lot. Those little tidbits help.
Yeah, since I've came back onto Instagram, I don't post much of any of me and my local guys on my accounts or the business account.
Yeah, fair enough.
There'll be some pictures I use from like trainings that I'll use as like the picture for like an educational post or something, but I don't post as much about the group. I think it's just because we're at the point where we're growing pretty decently, so I'm just trying to take the extra steps to hold some level of security to that.
Yeah. Protect your PII and
yeah. I mean, for those that know me in my everyday life, like guys know I'm a hooligan. Like even guys at the firehouse, though they may not like fully understand like what all I do in my off time, like they still know like, yeah, whatever he does, he's about it.
Funny thing is, my last command was about it. Like, they put me up for awards and stuff because of the stuff I was doing outside of work. It's crazy. Some commands are about it. So
yeah, some commands are really about it. Some don't give a damn at all, but somebody even prefers you don't do it at all.
Yeah, it's just take those little precautions you got to, like, don't be posting your name, I guess, everywhere. Like, only tell like your guys you trust, like,
yeah,
like invite them to your house unless you trust them. Like little things, common sense.
Yeah, and for me, like at this point, since I do run a business, like though I've never put my last name out there, like my first name and my face and everything, like that was just one of the things I had to accept a long time ago, is that if I was going to run a business, my name and face just has to be out there. And that's just kind of how
I guess it's okay for me because being a writer, I guess I can call myself a writer now because I wrote a book. That it's okay to use a fake name, a pen name, an alias, yeah. So
yeah,
but sure. It's funny because like the people who actually know me in real life, like they know like I wrote that book or something, and they don't go around like, hey, his name is Bleep or something. So I'm thankful for those guys too, guys and girls.
Yeah, if I did it all over and I didn't move forward with like pushing ECT as a business, and I just ran my personal account, just posted education and cool guy pics and all that kind of stuff, I would probably blur my face.
Blur your face, put some red X's over your eyes.
Yeah, something like that. Something makes me look real cool. Like when
Spirit is blurred.
When I change like the filter.
Use the T-Rex arms filter.
Yeah, just be real blue all the time.
Another thing, this is kind of like random. A lot of dudes don't want to like chat, I guess, on Instagram. Just like, not saying that you and I have never like talked before on Instagram. This one time I just went out of my way to like talk to some random page, or like, dude, he wasn't like extremely popular or anything. I was just like, hey, dude, what's up? Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, kind of interested like in your content, and just trying to like make more friends on the internet, I guess you could say. Like Tyler and I, or you don't know who Tyler is, the Longhouse Podcast.
Yeah.
And he Coniferous, right? He deleted his page.
Yeah, why do you do that for?
I think I don't remember if he told me specifically or he posted it. It was mostly he just wanted to focus on the podcast.
Fair. And
kind of like merge the ideas together, I guess. But I don't want to speak for him necessarily, but I think that's what it was. So if you want to know, go to the Longhouse Podcast and ask him specifically why he did his page. But that's kind of my understanding.
Gotcha. Anyway,
he wanted to focus on his business. Yeah. But yeah, I wish dudes would do that more, like go out of their way and like kind of like make friends, because then we can build that rapport of cross training and stuff like that, which I think is important.
Yeah, I mean,
not getting stuck in your little limited scope of the guys around you.
That's how I'm not like an influencer by any means. I don't have that many followers, but like I will very generally just like talk to just about anybody that messaged me. There may be eventually a point where like I stop messaging you back because like you're just the conversation isn't like productive in any sense. Or like
forcing it.
Yeah, like it's being forced. Like I don't want to talk about like the chips you had at lunch. Like you're cool. All you internet strangers are cool, but like I can't message 60 people a day about your lunch. like if you send me a question like, hey man, you made this comms post the other day, can you explain some stuff to me? Like, yeah, like I'll talk you through some stuff and we can chit chat. Oh, you're from here? That's cool. Do you know this page and blah blah blah. But like I think that's some things that some people don't understand. Is like there does have to be some limit to what you talk to internet strangers about.
Yeah, obviously OPSEC, etc.
And OPSEC, yeah. And some guys just don't want to talk on Instagram like at all.
They're too cool.
Well, they're either too cool or like guys that like don't post anything. They like don't want to associate their accounts with like any of that kind of stuff, like that kind of DM traffic.
I guess I kind of see what you mean.
I thought that was where you were going with this originally until you started talking more. I was like, oh, that's not what he meant.
No. I just want like dudes to be more friendly.
Sure.
Not getting stuck in your little niche of
Dude,
what you're doing, what you're teaching, or training.
Lucas from T-Rex Arms followed my account after talking with them
about
some LSW stuff, and I was like, damn, that's nifty.
Yeah, I think he, I don't want anyone to get mad at me. I think he could do more. I know he does a lot, but I think he could step it up a little bit. Like mainly, everyone should like build like a
more.
Like building a team, stuff like that. Like has he posted really anything about training with other guys? Like I think they did that one video where they did the bounding drill with the vehicles, right? That was a while ago though.
He hasn't, but his brother Isaac, he talks about a fair amount of like that kind of stuff in the T-Rex talks and like stuff like that.
Yeah, Yeah, that's the shit I like.
I mean, I do too. But at the same time, you also have to, I guess, like recognize you as an individual have to recognize and understand like where your level of expertise are in a sense. Because like if you ever like look at his stories and stuff like that, like he's always all about, you know, like guys getting together and training together and preparing and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't think that we should do that.
Yeah.
I guess I wish he posted more content of like him training with other guys. I thought that'd be cool.
I think
that'd be inspiring.
See, I've always thought about that too. I think there's just a big old T-Rex Arms community that, like the actual community, like the guys that work there and whatnot, and they're all just like big old preppers and they train together and they do all this crazy stuff. But I think for like the OPSEC security, since he has such like a overview on him, he's like,
yeah,
I'll just kind of stick to my content. Because like even like if you watch Grant Thumb's videos, he's always talking about, you know, getting out in your kit and training training with guys and whatnot, but you never see him with his crew. You know, he's got a crew.
Yeah, it's just those gun review videos or something.
Yeah,
I miss the OG videos of him. Yeah, with his little green screen in his house.
See, though I liked those, his like the videos he did, like how to survive in the mountains or survive whatever those urban and mountain survival videos, like I like those videos. That's my jam. Those things that like you turn on for like 35 minutes, he just talks about like a wide range of stuff. That's what I like. I've never really been like a big gun review person.
Well, I don't like. Okay, I guess I probably should have clarified a little bit. I like those videos too, but I was kind of referring to his little TTPs about like helmet setups, like plate carrier setups, stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of like over talked, but I like those videos because that's kind of what got me into this. Mm-hmm. Like my friend got me into like this, like my coworker, and I like surpassed him by like 1,000 times % after he introduced me to Grand Thumb. So yeah, I mean, thanks to that guy for getting me into this stuff. But I enjoyed those like little videos of, because I didn't know anything. Like, and maybe he's not like the expert in it, but he at least got me to a baseline of like what stuff I need, or how do I set up a plate carrier, or how do I wear my plates properly, stuff like that. So, but yeah, I like those surviving videos he posts, like the urban combat and the mountain one, the mountain series. So yeah, well, he's doing a good job with that, in that sense of like, hey, you should actually be going out and training these things. I guess that's kind of his little niche, though. He's got to make money somehow, so
yeah. I really like S2 Underground's channel.
That is also a good one.
That is a damn good one, and he talks
long
about
videos
stuff a lot.
But there's so much good information in there.
Yeah, for sure. I know he's busy as all hell because he recently moved, but I would love to see like if like he posted like weekly content. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Do you know is he just like an intel troop? Right, because he's S2. I don't know what his back. I'm guessing he's an intel guy. Yeah, from all the videos he posts about.
Yeah, he's said that he was former intel of some sense, but I don't want to. I could not speak on it intelligently because I just don't remember off the top of my head, so I couldn't tell you.
Oh, neither do I.
What he did.
Did I just dox him? I just guessed.
He's probably gonna like hack our computers just talking about it right now.
Dude, can you give me like $1 million if you hack my computer?
What's another really good channel that talks about?
I like
stuff?
What the Dirty Civilian, is that what it's called? They just started not too long ago.
Yeah.
Have you heard of them?
Yep, I am familiar with Drew and Dirty Civilian.
I like their goat video, the goat and the chicken video. That was so good. Like I didn't know any of that stuff. Yeah, the homesteading. Yeah, I like that. That was a great video. I don't know. It's really entertaining, but it's also like very informative. That's like a good like base or principle of like when you post social media, to be entertaining but also very informative, engaging to your viewer.
Content aside, their production quality is really, really good.
Yeah, it's just me and my iPhone, so.
Dude, I've said that for 3 years now, pretty much, until recently, right? I actually did one very awkward photo shoot with one of my local guys who brought his camera over. I have created every single piece of content on my iPhone. Every
That's what I
picture
like
has
to
been
see.
taken. Every video has been taken. All the editing, always done on my iPhone.
Isn't it wild how much we can do on like a little computer just
Yeah.
like that? It's amazing.
Everything for the business, iPhone.
Not only you can post this stuff, but you can also the internet, right? You can find everything out
Yeah.
there. If you really want to know something, you'll find it on the internet.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But then again, like I said, trust but verify. Some stuff is going to be wrong.
Yeah.
And not everyone's going to agree with my book on my tactics, but
Yeah, I already threw it away.
Oh, okay. he got to the react to contact part. He's like, "Fuck this. This is wrong." He has no machine gun in this setup. Fuck.
So you say machine gun, but let's talk about this. How do you feel about the more recent discussions on like LSWs and the automatic riflemen amongst civilians?
I think I posted about that on my first account.
Did you?
Yeah, so people started stealing my picture from it too. I remember it was a picture of a fire team. Yeah, I don't even know where it is now because I make the pictures on my Photoshop and then I never save them, so I have no idea where it went. I just like export it and then it's lost. Anyway, the picture was like example fire team setups of what.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that post.
Remember that? It was like the drone operator.
Yeah.
And I called it the automatic rifleman.
Yeah.
Because what's it called in the Marine Corps? IAR.
I mean, they're still automatic riflemen. They kind of like baseline. They're called like IAR gunners.
Yeah. So what you're asked, what was the question again? Sorry.
So just what was your thought on like the more recent implementation of like the automatic rifleman role and like guys starting to build out LSWs more and stuff like that?
So from a doctrine standpoint, from talking to other guys about utilizing the suppression, right? That's what they're looking for that rate of fire. Sustainably, or like logistically speaking, it's not very sustainable because we don't have, like, say I mag dump 2 drum mags. All right, I just shot 120 rounds. How many drum mags do I got, or how much ammo do I have on me right now? Like, it's smart thinking tactically speaking, but I think suppression by accuracy would be more viable. So having guys with, fuck, how do I explain it? Guys with like powered optics, and even though I mean, it's kind of funny because I'm kind of contradicting myself because I wrote about it, or not wrote about it, but I posted about it saying like, hey, this is kind of viable using a drum mags, or because that's more feasible. That who sells those? Was it 18-inch uppers or 16-inch uppers with the M60 looking bipods?
Well,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, with the M60 bipods, that's Klein Machining. That's who made my buddy's LSW.
Yeah. So, fuck, I forgot the question was, but
well, I guess
I think yeah, maybe.
So, I think in order to like truly be able to give like an answer and opinion on it, I guess it would really vary depending on who you were referencing, because like the definition of a light support weapon is, and I'm butchering this, but shortened, is to provide sustainable amounts of accurate suppressive fire. So like too many people think of LSWs as machine guns and like, oh, I can just dump rounds to make suppressive fire. But in reality, like your LSW is still somewhat of a accurate weapon. You're just using it at higher rates of fire in a suppressive manner. I guess it's too new of a topic for people to truly understand like the implementation of the LSW, because it is supposed to be the most sustainable weapon amongst a small force, because it utilizes the same caliber and the same magazine method as even the riflemen's within the squad.
Okay, so maybe I could change my mindset from what I just, because you kind of gave the same exact definition I just found when I looked it up real quick. It says the LSW is designed to provide small units with a high volume of accurate support fire without increasing the logistical load. Exactly what you just said.
Yep.
It's the same caliber. I mean, I'm probably just talking on my ass then, but it's just got to be mindful of like how much. I mean, if you're in a gunfight, right? Mm-hmm. You're probably not worried about the long-term effect of shooting a lot. You're just more worried about the short-term effect of not dying. I I don't see it as a hindrance.
Yeah.
In your tactics, speaking, I guess. But if that is the principle, if you're actually using it for the accurate support fire,
I think it
without
also
increasing logistical load.
I think it also depends a lot on who is implementing it, because a lot of guys that don't like the LSW think of it from like a conventional perspective, that like they're like way out in the middle of nowhere and they need now just like an obnoxious amount of 5.56 to feed this LSW. When in reality, like from our perspective, from the civilian perspective, you're thinking of it from more of a guerrilla aspect on your home turf. Hence, in the aspect of guerrilla warfare, you have caches staged throughout your home turf, which then feeds your guerrilla logistics system. So unless this is just like an absolutely obnoxiously prolonged conflict, which could either boost or shrink your caches, the thought process of, man, where am I going to get 5.56 isn't as much of a concern. Now, if you left your home turf and say you went like a state away to do XYZ, yeah, now you don't have that same logistics in place. So I guess it really comes down to what kind of logistics are you surrounding your LSW with.
So then it would have to be 5.56. Is that what we're kind of getting at?
I would say
to be a true LSW.
Well, not necessarily, but for the American perspective, yeah. If your group of guys predominantly runs AR-15s, you probably run 5.56. Hence, your LSW needs to be 5.56 because your small unit supports the LSW. Now, if you're in a different country, or you just happen to be a part of the United States where like you run 7.62 by 39, like the majority of your group runs AK variants, then like an RPK or something is going to be better for you. The guy in our group that runs the LSW, he originally had a 7.62 by 39 RPK, but everybody in the group runs AR, so he sold his RPK and built the 5.56 LSW. That way, the group itself could sustain the LSW. So it's all about that you should match your LSW to the build of your general purpose rifleman.
So pretty much 5.56.
Yeah, 5.56. That was a really long explanation of me telling you 5.56.
Yeah. No, I get it. It makes sense to me.
Some guys don't like a lot of.
So what's the downside to this LSW besides the fact you might be expending more rounds than your typical AR? I guess I don't really.
Yeah,
because no one's going to have a full auto one legally. So.
So the downside, obviously, being it does not. You're going to spend a whole lot more rounds, obviously, because you're picking up a higher rate of fire. But besides that, besides being able to apply higher rates of fire to like larger troop formations, light armored to no armored vehicles, you're really not gaining any capability to the group. Like even if we're talking about like implementing 240s into a group, you're adding a higher capability, to that small unit. Whereas with the LSW, you're only adding so much, and that's why every time I talk about the LSW or I post about the LSW, I constantly reiterate that this is not a machine gun. Its target precedence does not match a machine gun. Its caliber capability does not match a machine gun. So you're gonna have to realize that though the LSW is a great tool to the guerrilla force, it is limited still nonetheless. And also, if you're not using a specifically like a custom-made high round, high tempo capable barrel like from Klein Machining or some of the other companies that are making LSWs now, if you're just using a standard 5.56 barrel, you're going to go through 5.56 barrels like a mofo, which means more logistics, which means more parts break. Your standard 5.56 barrel is not going to take, thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds in a very, very short time period like that. It's just not made to keep up with that demand. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. So what?
Nor is your gas system. And that's another big thing you got to think about is your gas system. Your gas system isn't made for you to lay down 400 rounds in 3 minutes. I mean,
the gas is going to go bye-bye.
Yeah, it can do that maybe a time or two. But if you expect it to do that for 6 months straight, it's not going to do that.
Man, I'll just change out my gas tube during the middle of the fight.
Yeah, I'll just carry spare ones in my cargo.
So does the Klein have like a quick change barrel or something, or is it just a heavy barrel?
It is a heavy barrel. They do not have a quick change method, but I'll tell you, the barrel on those LSW builds, they are some thick old
Super
barrels.
hefty. How long is it?
I think they normally come in 20-inch, but you can pay an extra fee to get it cut down to 18 or I think 16 inches. Like my buddy built an 18-inch, so he paid the little extra fee. But in stock, they normally come 20-inch.
So I guess the other thing people are worried about is the weight, necessarily, because now you got to carry a longer gun, I guess, than
we got to carry a longer gun, you got to carry a bigger gun, on top of having to carry a lot more ammo. Because you got to think, if you're going to truly implement an automatic rifleman, he's not carrying 6+1 or 7+1 like the rest of your riflemen are. He's carrying anywhere from 10 to 14 mags with probably like a D60 or a KCI 100 starting off in the rifle. Or he's carrying saw pouches and he's got multiple D60s stored in different places.
I think that was the principle I posted, was that he carries, I don't remember how many D60s, but every other rifleman was carrying a D64 for him.
Yeah. I mean,
so spreading out the ammo.
Yeah, and if you're going to implement, the automatic rifleman or the LSW gunner, depending on what you call it, into your unit, that means that at the bare minimum, that fire team that LSW gunner finds himself in, that fire team has to then support that LSW guy. The good go-to is to either carry a spare D60 or carry 2 extra loaded mags a person. Now that LSW guy has all the mags in his pack, all the mags on his LBE or plate carrier or chest rig, depending on what he's wearing, but he's also got 6 more coming from his fire team. So
that's true. Oh, what? So you don't have to tell me if it's OPSEC or something, but I just wonder, like, what optic does he have on it? Does he have a suppressor on it? Does he have like anything else on it?
He is running. I mean, it's on my page, so it's not really,
Oh, okay.
He's running the ACOG with the RMR top mount.
Okay. I figured it's going to be probably a fixed.
Yeah, which I think.
Well, that's smart though. That thing's a tank.
Yeah, and I think that's probably best. That 3x or 4x fixed magnification is really good when you're trying to punch out, 100 yards or more. But having that RMR, because, in reality, that person still has to be able to shoot in and around vehicles, shoot room to room, whatever that might be. In your neighborhoods, you're not taking 300-400 yard shots. You're taking like 50-75 yard shots. Like if you're trying to defend your neighborhood from something, or whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah. But I can't do CQB with an 18-inch barrel, man.
You better figure it out. It's like I always say,
Welcome to Fallujah.
Better be a big strong boy.
Is he a big guy?
Oh yeah, he's a big dude.
What about the civilian saw?
I don't like the idea of the civilian saw. One, because it's not automatic. If you're gonna buy it and then make it automatic, that's based. But
Don't shoot my dog.
Don't shoot my dog. I would rather see people carry an LSW from the civilian perspective than the saw, because we're talking about barrels and links and all that kind of stuff when we're talking about the saw. And we're talking about a group that's funding itself, or a single individual that's funding himself. You don't have a ton of support in regards to that weapon system. Whereas not only does, the most common rifle in America, an AR-15s, you can find spare parts anywhere. The group, if you're smart, the group is putting some sort of supplies to the side to support the common weapon system and all that kind of stuff. So I would rather see civilian groups carry an LSW than carry the civilian saw.
So what is your... I'm just picking your brain right now.
Sure.
What does your squad, your rifleman squad, or your squad in general look like with an LSW? You got 2? You got 3? You got 1 each fire team, or 1? What's your...
If you ask my buddy, he would like to see an LSW in every fire team. However, when he built his LSW, it inspired another guy to build an LSW. So now we're kind of on track to try and put 1 in each fire team. I personally don't think the security team needs an LSW. If we're talking about a three fire team squad, you have your assault, support, and security. I think the support at the support needs an LSW. I think the assault needs an LSW. Because the support obviously is supporting the movement of the assault team on an objective. Or we can even think of it in the terms of squads if we're talking about like a platoon, a combat patrol at a platoon size. The support squad or the support fire team is supporting that assault element. So obviously they're going to want capable higher rates of fire. But at the same time, if we look at Doctrine, in the event that something goes wrong, the assault element is supposed to be able to support itself if the support element otherwise becomes occupied. Like say the security element picks up on something, there's some sort of enemy movement coming into the area, and the security element can't hold them off on their own. Well, that support element now has to shift fire and take support away from the current assault to talk about closing off that area to further enemy movements, and then the assault needs to support itself. So then it's nice for that LSW guy to also be in that squad and be able to pick up that rate of fire for that element.
I hope that guy in the assault element is good cardio.
Yeah, and good cardio. The security element, I don't really see the need for it. Because like for me, if I have a squad, my security element is, hanging out towards the rear. The medic or the RO, depending on what's going on, might be hanging out near the security guys. Like they're not, their first priority is not laying down just a ton of fire. They are literally just area security for the assault that is taking place. So that's just my opinion. If you think that your security element should have an LSW or an MG or whatever you have at your disposal, sure. I mean, if you've got the resources for it and you have a way to implement it, yeah, it's fine. But I personally don't see a reason for everybody to have an LSW.
I could see having one in each fire team. The only example I could really think of is just having that security element. Let's say you're doing like an ambush, you have that security element where the most likely path the enemy's going to come towards you, right? Their most likely avenue of approach, or direction at least. Let's say they discover the security element. Now at least you have your little buddy pair that has a little bit more firepower that they can sustain, so the other elements can maneuver to help them. But like you said, it's kind of probably going to be like we can war game this all we want, right?
Yeah, sure. If you had to ask me, like, should a guy spend $4,500 to build out
$4,500?
Yeah, dude. Well, I guess it depends on what kind of LSW you build.
Does that come with an optic?
I'm talking optic, IR laser.
Oh, okay.
Upper, lower, like the full shebang. But we'll even just throw a number. If you're asking me if you should spend insert amount of money to add a third LSW to your element, or you should invest in something that your group does not already have, whether it's a drone, whether you take the initiative to build like some sort of field man-pack radio, or maybe you buy some sort of thermal optic because nobody in the group has thermals, but some guys have night vision. Like, diversify your group's capabilities, then just like completely repeat stuff over and over and over again.
Just kind of like a segue. Do you guys write out a list of things you need? Like, this is like our priority purchase. This is going to be our second priority purchase. This is our third.
Yes, and that was actually something we just talked about recently at our most recent ABIT meeting. Was basically like our logistics officers, like one of his biggest complaints was like, hey, can we like prioritize what the hell we're going to buy instead of just like shotgunning projects every month? I was like, that's a good point. So then
can you define what a project means?
So
in your sense?
Sure. So like a project for us is like one big thing, especially like when it comes to comms, that I've come to realize is that being able to implement civilian market gear into a more tactical setting is not always possible. Like, for example, like there are no commercial secure man-pack radios. Like there's just not. Like how in the military you have the 117s and all that kind of stuff. Right. That doesn't exist on the civilian side. So we have to take mobile radios that was used for like first responders that uses like AES 256 encryption, play, mix and match with a bunch of different cables and connectors and all that kind of stuff, then custom create a frame to put that radio in, to then put it into a pack to create a field radio operator setup, basically. So that is a project, because there's a ton of moving parts to all that.
What's the point of this man pack besides having like let's say like a 152? Everyone has a 152.
Mm-hmm. So the point of the man pack is to be able to stretch VHF and UHF comms in a secure manner. I could dive into a shit ton of stuff as far as like the tactical implementation of comms. But obviously, VHF and UHF is line of sight and is impaired by obstacles. Some VHF will do better in some environments, UHF will do better in other environments. But regardless, it's still impaired by obstacles. You have two ways to overcome that. Either raising your antenna higher off the ground to gain more distance, or push more power. So we try to do both of that with man packs and properly planned comms windows. But then you also get into the sense of like mobile radios and setting up antenna hills, trying to create our own repeater system, like all that kind of stuff goes into play. And basically, we didn't want to create man packs that were not secure. Like all of our comms infrastructure that we're personally trying to create and build around is all about doing so in a secure manner.
Right, you don't want to be paying someone to encrypt your radios. You should be change your keys yourself. So
well, yeah, and I mean even past that, not only just the self-sustainable portion of being able to secure our own radios, but just in general for operational security, everything from HF to our VHF to just all of it having the highest level of security that we could possibly obtain.
So you're making your own, basically, is what you're saying.
Correct, yeah.
Trying to make your own, or that's your project.
Trying to create your own comms infrastructure and sustainment.
The FCC's coming for you. I'm going to report you.
My name is Tyler. My Instagram name is Coniferous Origins.
Coming for the RTO. So.
That's exactly why I picked him.
Smart.
But yeah, I mean, just with all of it, I don't even remember. How did we get on this topic? What were we talking about?
We're talking about LSWs.
Yeah, okay.
And I asked you what do you mean by projects, and how do you prioritize buying stuff for your group? Because I'm learning stuff, like, this is like what I like to talk about, is just like learning all this stuff from other guys, because we don't know what we don't know, so I got to try to figure out the right questions to ask you.
Sure. Yeah, this really is your podcast now.
I think it's people will learn a lot of stuff. Like, I'm learning stuff. So
yeah, and that's why
I already talked about my book. I don't care about that. Let's talk about something important.
And that's why, like, my page is the content, like, focus is just absolutely everywhere all the time. Like, my page has no one sole purpose. It's just, what project am I working on this week? Cool, let's talk about it. Hopefully somebody learns something, or I learn something by talking about it.
Another question.
Sure.
Do you guys do your meetings in person, or is it on the internet?
In person.
Okay, cool.
And I would suggest everybody do them in person. Not only is it better than creating more of a digital footprint, but it's also good just to see people's faces and develop that sense of morale and that sense of basically family in a sense. We did just recently start doing like online classes, like to help put in more training hours. It's like I'll pick a topic for the night and we'll do like a Skype conference call. Everybody can come in and I'll screen share and we'll like go through a PowerPoint and stuff like that.
So you said your business. I guess I'm trying to make you advertise yourself on your own page, or your own podcast. What do you? What's your business about? I'm ignorant to this. I did not know yet a business. I just thought it was like an Instagram page, to be honest.
Oh, you didn't know it was a business?
No, I just thought it was an Instagram page. I thought you had like your personal one, and then this is like your podcast like page or something.
No. The podcast
came idiot.
Because my business page like went through so many deletions. So I was like, man, I need more ways to like continue to stay in check with people and whatnot.
I'm gonna go on your website right now while we're talking.
Yeah, hop on there. So ECT was basically founded to like normalize the tactical civilian. That goes to comms, medical, marksmanship, preparedness, like all of it. It is literally just a giant do-it-all, kind of place. Our first class we ever taught was the Medical Response 1 class, which is so much more different than like your casual Stop the Bleed or TCCC class. Like, we're trying to change the mindset of the medically responding civilians. We talk about anatomy. We talk about scene safety and like developing the scene. We talk about patient care. What's up?
Sorry, my ADHD took over. I said scene is safe.
Yeah, the scene is safe. Which came with our first line of products, which was all medical stuff. We have the trauma IFAC, and now we have
I see that.
The Swift Dangler, which is super cool.
Swift Dangler.
And then I just recently started getting into the radio stuff because I really enjoyed learning all of this radio stuff from other guys on Instagram and self-teaching myself and whatnot. So I was like, well, there's really only one guy, Bush Comms, who's selling these XTS 5000s. He's got more orders than he can deal with. So I was like, well, I guess I'll pick up radios too. So we started doing radios, and we have some other stuff in the work. And then we also do the defensive pistol 1 classes now, which again is different from like your normal pistol 1 class. It's not like just an 8-hour marksmanship class. It's hey, let's get on the grounds, let's get behind cover, let's.
Oh, I can't reload outside of cover.
No, I wouldn't. You gotta do it really fast.
I just like run at him while I'm reloading to close the distance, right?
You need
it's like it's Call of Duty.
A shock effect. Like, he's really running at me.
He just starts screaming at him. You just see how charged. I don't know. That's so funny.
But yeah,
I just had a funny story real quick. Because I just went to the range with some guys I met here last weekend, and the drill. I forgot what drill we were doing, but I didn't have enough mags for it.
Mm-hmm.
So then someone yelled "fix bayonets," and it just made me laugh so hard because I ran out of ammo for the drill. But yeah, that's what it made me think of. Stupid, but I thought that was funny. You're gonna start selling bayonets now after this bayonet stock's going up.
Bayonets going up. Oh man! Oh wow, we've been going for over 2 hours now.
Hell yeah!
Nice. I remember when we hit the hour mark, I was like, all right, got an hour in. And then I feel like I blinked and we did another hour.
Modern Minuteman.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about the Minuteman stuff since 2020.
Yes. I hopefully you don't think I stole that idea from you or anything,
no.
That title?
It's not even like my idea. I mean, it's the Modern Minuteman isn't taken by me. My old business account, like the first one, I had probably like 15 or 20 posts up on like various Minuteman topics and like basically creating groups and organizations and all that. And then when I got deleted, I was like, man, I'm just going to completely change the format of all of this.
So what inspired you with the that name?
Or
where'd you find it from? Like, I don't know where I found it from, to be honest.
Let's see. If I remember, there was an old account that used to be called Free Meme Society. And he started posting memes about just like random groups of dudes that were basically like responding to the BLM protests and Antifa riots and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he just talked about the Minuteman, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I was like, I think that's a good way moving forward, because at that point militia was kind of a dirty term still. I was like, but Minuteman, that's pretty nifty.
Based. It's pretty based.
So then I just
as a cool kid saying.
I just started rolling with it. Edited this Minuteman logo to be like more modern, obviously because it has the AR and whatnot instead of the musket, and then we just went from there.
Yeah. Isn't that where did you design it from? I thought it looked from like Fallout or something. That's what it reminded me of.
See, the original Fallout one is the lightning bolt, the 3 stars, and the blaster rifle.
Oh, okay.
And then when I
I like it a lot.
And then when I originally started posting Minuteman content, I made this logo, but I changed the blaster rifle to a musket just to for the historical sense. And then when I started talking, and then when I changed the kind of like the name of the topic to the Modern Minuteman instead of just Minuteman, I changed the musket to the AR, and then it's been like that since like probably like the end of 2021.
Okay. So how long you've been doing this since 2020? You said?
Yeah.
Because that's when you got out.
Yeah, that's when I got out. I probably started posting Minuteman content in like September of 2020.
Okay. Do you agree with the sentiment? This is off topic again. My ADHD is running rampant right now. That the dudes I've trained with in the past is that the civilian guys are more. I don't want to say like this is like 100% accurate, but they are very receptive to criticism and learning, and I guess it's kind of different than me like training another guy in my job who's actually in the military because he has to be there versus training someone who wants to be there.
Yeah. I've always said it that all of the civilians that I train with, and I've got some good vets in my group too, but the majority of them is civilians. I've always said that working with the civilians and training with them and whatnot, with the exception of a few guys from the military, has always been more enjoyable than training with a lot of guys that did in the military. Because not everybody in the military had the same like be about it attitude. Again, like it's like we talked about earlier. Like some guys just want to do the bare minimum 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And they're not even giving full effort there. And there's probably some person that like I was in the military with right now that was like, oh, but you didn't run an 18-minute 3 miles, so you're not about it. Like, okay, I can't run very fast. All right, but like, you always found me outside of work, in the gym, at the range, studying. Like, there was a few core group of guys that like that's just what we did, and that's what made the friends group is that we just wanted more all the time.
Were you fired in the military too?
No.
Okay.
I was embassy security.
Oh yeah. What? I think I've heard you were on a podcast with someone. I can't remember who it was. I remember you talking about that. Fuck. You probably been on a lot of them, so you were like, I don't know. This is probably one of them.
I'm trying to think. That's at like the beginning of my intro every single time. It's kind of hard to narrow it down.
Were you in the Longhouse podcast?
I've not ever been on the Longhouse podcast. That'd be cool, but I have not.
I'm trying to think of another podcast. I don't really listen to podcasts that much.
I was on the Polar Connection. I was on Misfit Group's podcast. I was on Civil Sentinel's podcast. Like a couple others.
I don't know idea.
I don't know.
That's funny. I don't know why I asked you that because I knew that answer, but I totally forgot.
Oh. Well, I think we could probably start wrapping it up right about here. I think we've definitely had some very productive conversation. Y'all go buy his book. Link in bio.
Yeah, and then give me a 1-star review after you buy it. Say this book fucking sucks.
Report him to Jeff Bezos himself and tell him this book is extremist. Get it taken down.
There's no extremist stuff in there at all.
Dude.
The title, though.
The front is camouflage.
Multicam black goes hard. Don't at me.
That's the thing is, I do not like multicam black, but it fits this book cover very well.
I think I'll just keep using it. Or I could change it up.
It looks cool because you put the white font over it and it like really makes it stick out. So I like it.
You see the little Sons of Liberty flag on the side?
I did.
Yeah. I talk about it in the next book, yeah.
Oh, really?
What do the stripes mean? What do the numbers mean, Mason? Basically the same thing. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you letting me come here and talk about everything, my little schizo rants.
For sure. What? Go ahead and say what your new Instagram name is for everybody again.
Oh yeah, so it's official Jon Case, so JONCASE. The links to my book and everything are on there, so if you just click on my bio, you'll see my website, and then it should be pretty easy to find the book if you want to buy it. If not, all good. If you have bought it already, please leave me a review, because it really helps a lot with the algorithm of people searching for stuff on Amazon. Thank you for helping me get to the #1 vocational education. I don't even know what that means, but somehow I made that.
Much education.
Vocational education. The what do you call it? Like the genre, I guess, of the book is what I selected somehow.
Oh, nice.
Somehow we were number 1 in that section. So that's pretty based because of you guys.
Awesome. Well, Johnny, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
All right, guys, that's all I've got for episode 23, The Modern Minuteman. As always, train hard, train often.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down